I'm going to deliver this as a fresh, commentary-driven YouTube script, written from scratch, with my own take, not a paraphrase of the source material. Let's dive into the drama, the ethics, and the bigger questions it raises about fame, fans, and boundaries. A lot of people are paying attention to a moment in a hotel lobby and breakfast area in São Paulo, where a pop star and a Brazilian footballer found themselves at the center of a clash over how fans and families are treated in public spaces. On one side, Chappell Roan says her team's security didn't target a mother and her child, and she emphasizes that her personal security wasn't involved. On the other side, Jorginho Frello describes an incident where his 11-year-old daughter felt frightened after what he calls an aggressive interaction with a security guard. The core tension: how do we balance the safety of performers and their teams with the reality that fans, especially young fans and families, are part of the show and part of the culture that fuels these artists' careers? What makes this really interesting is not simply who's right or wrong in this hotel moment, but what it reveals about expectations in public spaces when fame intersects with ordinary family life. The public figures in question aren't just performing on stage, they are also navigating the same spaces as fans: restaurants, hotels, lobbies, where micro-encounters can feel normal to one side and intrusive to another. Personally, I think this highlights a broader shift. Fans want access, artists want autonomy, and everyone is trying to figure out what respectful interaction looks like in real time. One thing that immediately stands out is the role of security as an intermediary. The guard's job is to protect, not to police every potential moment of recognition. But if a mother and a child recognize a star across a hotel dining area, the default reaction should be context-aware and de-escalatory, not punitive. What many people don't realize is that perception matters as much as reality here. A guard's tone, framing, and immediate assumptions can transform a brief moment of curiosity into a moment of fear for a child. From my perspective, the lesson isn't about policing fans, it's about training staff to read room dynamics and to prioritize non-confrontational approaches when dealing with families. Another key idea: the public's appetite for moments with celebrities versus the right to a private moment. Roan's message to the world is about boundaries and consent. She's made a career out of pushing back against invasive behavior and setting rules for interaction. That stance matters because it signals a cultural shift. Celebrities aren't obligated to perform for every passerby, and fans shouldn't assume that hunger for attention justifies rough handling or misinterpretation. What this really suggests is a need for clearer protocols in venues and hotels about when and how staff engage with guests, and how they handle unsolicited requests for interaction. From the athlete's side, Frello frames his family's experience as a protective act for a child who simply recognized a star she admires. He emphasizes that his daughter didn't approach or ask for anything other than confirming the identity she recognized. The deeper implication here is about the vulnerability of children in the public eye. If a kid's moment of recognition can escalate into a security confrontation, what does that say about the training and boundaries in place for all parties involved? A detail I find fascinating is how different cultures interpret public familiarity. In some environments, a quiet wave might be seen as harmless; in others, it could trigger alarms. This inconsistency underscores a broader trend. Global fandom is a patchwork of expectations, and clearly defined, universally understood guidelines are long overdue. What makes it tricky is the narrative tension. Both sides claim they acted with good intentions, but the outcomes diverge dramatically. If you take a step back and think about it, this isn't a simple miscommunication. It's a collision between two versions of acceptable behavior in public spaces: the performer's need for security and the family's desire for a normal, non-threatening moment with someone they admire. It raises a deeper question: how should public spaces be designed to accommodate high-profile personalities without making fans, especially kids, feel policed or pushed away? From my own angle, I wonder about the long-term impact on young fans who see adults they look up to navigate these conflicts. Do moments like this deter kids from approaching celebrities in the future, or do they push fans to seek safer, more structured ways to engage, like official meet and greets, moderated events, or consent-driven interactions? What this really suggests is that the celebrity-fan dynamic is evolving toward more intentional and mediated encounters, with institutions, venues, management, security teams, becoming co-authors of the fan experience rather than gatekeepers of fear. A detail I find fascinating is how public apologies or clarifications shape the story after the fact. Roan's emphasis that her security wasn't involved reframes the narrative from a potential blame-shifting scenario into a dialogue about misinterpretation and assumptions. It's a reminder that in social media-driven moments, the first version of events often becomes the most amplified, regardless of later corrections. If you zoom out, this is less about who did what and more about how platforms curate perceptions, shape reputations, and influence the pace at which a story becomes a meme or a cautionary tale. So what does this mean for you, the viewer who's here for insight rather than PR spin? First, boundaries matter. Second, context matters. And third, training and protocols matter. If a child's safety can be compromised by misread signals in a breakfast hall, every hotel, every venue, and every festival should double down on clear, humane guidelines for how staff interact with fans and families. This is about preserving the magic of fame while protecting the vulnerable moments that fans crave. Closing thought, we are watching a microcosm of a bigger trend, the normalization of consent-driven celebrity encounters. The industry is slowly learning that fans, especially young ones, deserve spaces where admiration doesn't cross into fear. If we are honest, the healthiest outcome is a culture where recognition is welcomed, but never at the expense of safety or dignity. So I'll leave you with this question. How would you redesign a meet and greet or hotel interaction to ensure everyone feels safe, seen, and respected? If you found this angle interesting, drop a comment with your take on how venues could better handle these moments. Do you think more training for security teams helps, or should we push for more controlled access and official fan experiences? I'm curious to hear how you'd balance the thrill of recognition with the reality of safety in public spaces.